Good evening, everyone. I'm Nathan, here with my wonderful wife, Laura.
Hello.
And we're here to do a review of the board game Wildlife.
Yes, we are. So you can see a big elephant on the front. We're going to go collect some wildlife today and whack them all in some zoos.
Yeah, so it actually is like about conservation and protecting species and all that. Might not necessarily come across that way these days, but that's what it was released for with the intent of.
Especially not with how I just explained it. That is the general gist of the game, though. We're going to go around the world, collect some different animal species and put them in some zoos to win the game. But again, it is with a focus on that's a way of protecting them and learning more about them to keep them safe. Even though, doesn't come across that way.
Just keep that mindset in mind. I think it came out in the 70s?
70s, yes it did. There's actually, I'll just note in the instructions, there's information about like how the game came about, if you want to pause and give that a little bit of a read. It is in conjunction with the WWF, the World Wildlife Foundation, I think it stands for.
Not the wrestling one.
No, nothing to do with wrestling.
Looks like that fake wooden thing they like to put in the 70s on everything.
Yep. It's not though.
It's not.
It's just a regular board.
I'm having trouble opening up this regular board.
No. So we've got it upside down. So the board is the world with a lot of different animals. They are some of the moving spaces, those animals, and then in each corner of the board we have a list of animals for each different type of zoo.
Yeah, so each player, in a general game, each player generally take one zoo and then they have to fill up that zoo with animals they get throughout the world.
With those specific animals. Yes, the first player to do that is the winner. There's a couple of different ways to play though, which we'll cover shortly. So we'll come back to the board after. Oh no, things have fallen out.
Yeah, so we did have them all nicely sort of organised, but it's just one of those games that doesn't quite want to stay put.
Which is a shame, because it does have a tray that has appropriate slots for everything.
It's entirely possible over the age, and sometimes they get a bit thicker and fluffier, the cards, so they take up more space, but...
Sure. Well, let's have a quick look at the money, which you use in the advanced game, but not the basic game, which, again, we'll explain more soon. So we have some $10 notes.
We have a 50.
Yep. Do we have something in between, or would you go up to 100 next?
100, 1,000...
Yep, then we have a 200.
And I think...
I'm a bit mixed up. I think that might be it.
Yep.
The 1,000 is the big one.
The yellow tokens, which basically you put on your zoo when you've collected and deposited your animal into your zoo to mark off which ones you still need and which ones you don't.
Yep. We have two standard dice there. They are like a red wood sort of finish, which a lot of games, I think, around that time
and
have.
We think this might be a dice roller, but we're not sure. It's a bit oddly shaped.
It's also not really that necessary
to
have. Now, it's up to, well, technically up to 5 players. We'll explain how.
Technically, in
the
barest sense.
But there are only 4 playing pieces. So we have this yellow explorer.
They're all dressed as the explorer from Jumanji.
We have blue. They're all the same as well. It's just the colour that is different. We have green.
And finally red.
And he is on all of them looking through some binoculars. Obviously to find
his next animal to save.
Alright, what we might do is get the board back out before we show you a couple of other things so we can kind of start explaining the actual...
Yeah, forgive us. It's complex to explain, but once you get going, it's really not that bad. It's one of those games. You need to sort of play to see how it goes.
Yes, so we're not going to do a playthrough because we would be here for too long. So we're just going to pretend that Nathan is yellow and I am blue.
Sounds good to me.
So there is a basic rules game which they recommend more if like you're playing with kids. We're going to explain that way first.
And then basically we'll just say what's different between that and
the advanced rules. Yeah. So we have a start space over here in, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Morges, I don't know. Apparently that was, at least at the time, the main location for the WWF. So
it's probably changed in the last 40 years.
Yeah, so that's why that is the start space. So if you're playing the basic rules, we all start there, anyone who is playing, and then it depends on how many people are playing what you do next.
So you go counterclockwise around the board?
Well, hang on, I was going to say setup first. So if we were playing with 2 players, each of us will have either 1 or 2 of these zoos.
So if you've got 2, you've got to fill up 2 entire zoos, but it's going to be a longer game.
Yeah, so if you want it to be longer, you'd have 2 each. Shorter is just 1. If you want to play with 3 players, there's a couple of different options. You can either have all 3 players on the board, and then one of those 3 players has to act as the game warden.
Which is basically the banker in all respects. You're handing out animals and money and things.
Yes, exactly. If it's in a 2-player game, obviously one of them still has to be the game warden. Or in a 3-player game, you can have 2 people play and one of them does not have a piece and they are only the game warden. I feel like that's not really playing,
No,
personally.
and if you've got 3 people playing, each person takes 1 zoo, and then the final zoo is just closed.
Closed. Yep. If you have 4 players, each player takes 1 zoo, and then one of them also acts as the game warden.
Or you could have 4 people playing, and the unlucky 5th player can act as the warden.
Yeah. So again, it's not really the 5th player playing. So
No.
it's really only a 4-player game.
Yeah, pretty
You're actually
much.
in there. Yeah. So we're going to just do it as though it was a 2-player game since there's 2 of us.
And we're just going to take one zoo each. I'll take the blue, you take the blue and yellow, and the other 2 zoos will just be closed.
Well, we'll just pretend we have. How about the ones we're near?
All right.
So say I was the green zoo and Nathan was the blue zoo. We can't actually just pick though. We are supposed to roll the dice.
Give me.
Whoever gets the highest roll,
I'm going to get the green piece so it all just matches. There we go.
whoever gets the highest roll gets to pick their zoo first. Second highest roll picks second, and so on.
Think of Mario Party.
Yeah. Nathan has just switched me to green there,
Just
by
so
the
we
way,
can have-
so that it matches the zoo. I've just dropped a counter.
Now, all the zoos, by the way, from what we saw, are mostly even, except the one with the giant panda,
Yes.
which we'll explain shortly.
So everybody starts the game with 12 of these counters because, as we mentioned, they cover the pictures of your animals when you complete them, so you just get those off to the side. You then have to sort all of the animal cards. You can take some of those.
So you have to have all the
different
red ones,
colours.
which would, yeah. So they're all colour-coded.
Yeah, so we would put all 4 into different piles. So green is the children's zoo, blue is the pachyderms and reptiles zoo, red is apes and birds, and then the yellow one is great cats and bears, I think.
Yeah.
So we'd sort those out and have all of those. I think they're mostly in the right order already. I don't know if I've got all of them, but that will do for the moment. So these go in, doesn't matter, just whatever order they kind of come out in piles off the side of the board. Obviously we would need the green and the blue in this case. So you'd sit those off the side, but we don't have room. So they're going to sit there for the moment. So those are the animal cards that you've got to collect as you move. So whoever rolled highest and picked their zoo first also goes first for the gameplay.
It's only using 1 die, I believe, in the simple game. The advanced rules use 2 and a couple of extra rules, but for the simple one, 1 die, you roll.
Yep. There's also no money. And you might see these logos for ships and lighthouses. They are card spaces. The cards do not get used in the simple
No,
rules.
they function similar to, say, a community chest and chance, and you pick it up and you follow it, but
not in the simple.
not in the simple game.
Alright, so say I was going first, I've rolled a 2, I would move, I'd be green. Each white space and each ship is a moving space, whether it's an empty dot or it's got a picture or whatever.
2.
So I've landed just in Iceland, there's nothing there, so nothing would happen. Had I rolled a 1 and landed on a lighthouse, in the simple rules, nothing happens either because there's no cards in this version.
You'd normally draw, but in a simple one, nothing happens.
Same if I land on a ship, there's no ship cards in the simple rules. If I land on an animal, however, I get that animal card. Irrelevant of whether it is for my zoo or somebody else's zoo.
And there is no payment required, you just get that animal.
So the Greenland seal actually is one of my zoos, so whoever's the game warden would look and go, okay, where's that seal? Greenland seal, that's what I said, wasn't it? Yep. So I get given that card and I can keep that, but it's not in my zoo yet because I'm over here.
And you have to actually get to your zoo to put said animal in zoo.
Yes. Now, if that wasn't me that landed there, but it was Nathan and he doesn't need the Greenland seal, he would still get that card if it hadn't already been given out.
No, and then a couple of things will happen. If you got to my zoo, all the way around here.
Which you have to stop at, by the way. So if I was here and I rolled a 6, I go 1, 2, 3 and stop. I have to stop at every zoo that is open in the game.
Now, I want to explain 2 things. One, you can then trade one of your animals for one of the animals you need. So if you've got, or whatever you've got there.
Pretend I had the lynx.
And okay, and I've got obviously the seal. You need the seal. Okay, I'm going to trade. It doesn't specify in the manual that I have to trade, but if you don't. There
Stops the game from moving
There
forward.
is a way for the seal to be got by you if I refuse, but I think you just generally accept the trade because there's not really any benefit for you to hold on to it.
No, it doesn't say it's a mandatory trade. So pretend I had one that Nathan actually needs. Where are the blue ones? I don't have them, I don't think.
I got the reds.
I've got lots of yellows in the
The
box.
blues are over there.
Alright. So maybe I had one that he needs, I land on his zoo, and I go, okay, you get this, I now have this. We trade.
Values are ignored, by the way.
In this version
Yep.
of the game.
The other way that, so say, same thing happened, and you had the links again, and you want to trade, and I'm like, no, I don't want to give it to you. If I happen to pass, if I get to my zoo, I believe, or is it if I pass start? I can't remember.
I don't know what you're on about. You've got that and you don't get it. The only way to get this right now is to trade it with the person who has it.
I thought-
Okay? No. So, you move anti-clockwise around the board, by the way, which is why we've come that way. So, if Nathan had that and gets back to his own zoo, which you also have to stop at, by the way, and he had these two animals here, he needs his hippopotamus. So he would mark his hippopotamus off and that just goes aside. We no longer need that card. But this isn't his animal. He can't deposit this in his zoo because he doesn't house seals. This would then go back to the game warden's
That's what
pile.
I was trying to say if I didn't do the trade.
But that doesn't mean I get it.
No, you don't
get
get
it.
it.
It just goes back to you were saying that's how you would
No,
get it.
but then you got an option to then land back there to try and get it again.
Yes, so then if you land on it in future, the card is back with the game warden, you can receive it again. Another way to get animals aside from just landing on them is to come all the way around the world and go past the start space. Every time you go past it, the game warden gives you your animal of choice that is still in the game warden's pile for your zoo. So you can pick whichever one.
In the advanced rules, if you land on start, you get two, or is that for the simple rules too?
Yes, so if you happen to land on start in the basic rules, you get two animals of your choice. Again, you still have to get around and stop at your own zoo to deposit them to actually keep them. And the first player to get all 12 is the winner. In that simple one, it really is more about just landing on them, getting them, dropping them off, maybe a trade if you land, if you stop at the zoo that someone else has what you need.
So you can learn, because not only do they have pretty pictures, but they've actually got description of all said animals in the back.
Yeah, so you can learn a little bit about them as well if you don't know much. With the basic game, the only other way to get animals is to land on one of these spaces with a little man on them. They are, what are they called?
Gamekeepers?
No, they're...
Wardens?
I've forgotten their name.
They're special people that let you pick any animal to take home with you
Yes.
in their region.
Yes, it's an animal dealer. So I guess they're selling you an animal, but even though there's no money in this version. But
No.
yeah, you can collect
So,
one
for
that
instance,
way.
you land on Dakar. I'm imagining most of the stuff in Africa you could probably pick from.
Well, it doesn't factor in the simple game. If you land on one of those, you get one of the cards you need.
I'm thinking of
That's
the
it.
advanced one.
Yeah. So you do that, move around, keep going until somebody gets all 12 deposited in their zoo.
It's a fairly basic... I would try and go for the advanced game.
Well, that's a good one for kids.
Yeah.
Oh, the only other thing is here, Mauritius apparently is known as
Land of Extinction.
Yeah. If you land there, you lose 2 turns, which could be quite detrimental. And the other one, the giant panda we mentioned earlier.
It's a pain.
If you land on Shanghai here and you need the giant panda, which I believe is in the children's zoo. Yep, that's the hardest
You
one.
have to roll 1 die. Even means you don't get it. Odd means you do get the panda and you move onto the panda space and acquire the panda.
Even means you just keep moving on for your next turn. So you could go all the way around the world and just miss it every single time. Because you have to land on Shanghai to even get a chance at
It's
it.
even worse in the advanced game because the panda is one of the most expensive creatures to buy, I think, in the game.
Yeah, that's definitely an animal you want to get for free going past start or something like that if you need it.
Oh, but there's different rules about getting animals going past start and advanced too, isn't there?
There is. So moving on to then the advanced game, you still kind of start in the same place. You have 2 die though, and you do need to get your cards out. Sorry, I'm just grabbing them from the box.
So you've
So
got
you
your
have-
lighthouse.
Yep. You have your
Your
ship
ship.
cards, and then you also start with some money. which varies depending on which zoo. You still decide zoos and like first turns in the same way with rolling. Highest number gets to pick, highest number goes first, all that sort of stuff. The money though depends on the zoo because the animal costs vary.
So the children's zoo, which has the giant panda, you get the most money because some of the animals are overall more expensive. Where obviously like the great cats and bears, most of the animals are cheaper to acquire, so you get less money.
Yes, you do have to buy the animals in the advanced version. So if I was to go and land on that Greenland seal, it's a great example there for us again. I would have to pay the capture cost, which is £50 here, but its value is £100. Again, it's got that info on the back. So yeah, you don't get them automatically. When you go past start, instead of just being handed your choice of animal,
You've just got an upside down pile.
well, it's a face-up pile.
Face-up pile, and you basically just get the first animal on top.
Yeah, so it should have been just randomised at the start of the game. You maybe shuffle them or something. It doesn't say to do that, but you could otherwise be sneaky and put the most expensive one on top knowing you're going to get it when you go past start. If you land on start, you get £200. If you go past start, you also get £100 in the advanced version of the game. Now, if you land on a ship space, instead of it doing nothing, you pick up a ship card.
Most of these involve something bad. You are
Sometimes good.
You are too thrifty and fail to feed your charges properly. As a punishment, you have to spend time on Mauritius, the island of extinct animals. Go directly to the island where you have to miss 2 turns.
So you then move there, miss your 2 turns.
You know, you must pay $300 for repairs because the cages were damaged.
You don't get a lot of money in this game aside from going past that start space or landing on the start space, and you really only get that one amount of money otherwise at the start of the game. So needing to do one of these more expensive ones really can be a problem.
A lot of these are negative.
Yeah.
So the shipping ones, you're probably more likely to go and get something negative than positive.
Something unpleasant. If you land on a lighthouse space, you pick up a lighthouse card.
Go to any harbour of your choice or to Shanghai, so that's really good if you need to get the panda. The cages and cases are thoroughly inspected and you miss a turn. Why don't you not say, miss a turn, go directly to Galapagos Islands.
So
Pay $500 to the game warden.
That's a lot. So I suppose there's a little bit of like geography involved. Oh, where am I being sent? You know, try and find out. So I guess there's a small educational sort of portion there alongside learning about the animals. So the other thing with this in the advanced version is if you land on one of the people spaces, you have to purchase an animal from them. It has to be in their area of the world, though.
This dude here has to be sort of within the South America, and I think North America.
And South America for this Assumption location. Sorry if I've mispronounced that.
Africa for
so Dakar is Africa and Madagascar. The one in New Zealand down here is Australia and New Guinea, and then Hyderabad is all remaining territories between Borneo and Europe, so kind of up that way. If you land on them, you can only get an animal from their area of the world. You do have to pay that cost of capture value as well.
Which is still useful, especially if you need that darn giant panda.
Yeah, exactly, but obviously you need the Hyderabad person because he's the one in that region. Now, in this as well, you still have to stop on other people's zoos. So if Nathan rolls a 3, he has to stop here anyway.
But there is something I have to give you money if that's your zoo.
Yes, so in the advanced one you have to pay me because, oh look, you're travelling with your hippo. You haven't delivered him to your zoo yet.
So I need to board with you to have him fed and cleaned and all that, and that's going to cost me money.
Oops, there goes a token off the edge of the table. Yes, so
I think it's $30 per animal.
Yeah, so if Nathan's on me and he's got one animal with him, it's £30 for forage and accommodation.
But
that can double if I have 6 or more of the animals already deposited back in my zoo, which again I do by landing or stopping back at my own zoo. It's £60 for each animal. So that is another way to make a bit of money, but you're relying solely on the people having lots of animals with them.
Yeah,
So.
and overall a lot of these cards are like $400 or $500 losses.
Yeah.
So
getting like £30 or £60 every time someone stops at your zoo doesn't really make up for that.
and you have to trade. I think the trading's slightly different.
So you actually buy them when you stop at somebody else's zoo. The visitor must sell one of their cards if the zoo owner needs it.
So, for instance, you've stolen my hippo.
No. If you're landing on me.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
And you have, say, my koala, and I need that koala, Nathan can't stop me. I can say, I'm buying the koala off you because you're here. He still has to pay board for it, though.
And you have to pay $100 instead of the cost of capture.
Yes.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're not capturing it.
The value of it. It's another way to get the animal without needing to kind of land on it, but it can get expensive. And again, you need to make sure that somebody else has it, because the only way in the advanced game for somebody else to have your animal is for them to have landed on it and then paid for it.
But
it's not like in the simple game where they land on it and they get it for free.
And money's, like you said, it's a valuable resource in this game that you don't get a lot of. So unless you're deliberately trying to stuff someone up with their last animal, there's very little reason we found to buy other people's animals. Yeah,
we found money-wise it didn't make sense to buy someone else's animals, and I don't think we really ended up doing it when we were playing. So we played a 3-player game with my mum, actually, when she was here, and none of us really bought anybody else's because we didn't have the money for it.
No.
So, that part may or may not be useful. If you do run out of money, though, speaking of that in the game, you can sell your animals back to the game warden, technically. It's at half the value, I believe.
Yes.
Just checking. Yep. The cards then go back to the bottom of that zoo's pile with the game warden.
And they have to try and retrieve them again.
Yep, you have to take off any tokens. I feel like that would make the game take a really long time, though, so
it's one of those games I think plays better when you start playing it than it looks and sounds, because it's a fairly dull looking board and all that, but it actually wasn't too bad with 3 people, was it?
Yeah, I think with 2 it might be a little bit slow, but when you have a couple of people visiting your zoo and things like that, it's not a bad game. Probably a little bit outdated with the idea behind it.
Who was the woman that studied all the chimps and all that?
Was it Jane Goodall?
Yeah, I mean, she's saying, just someone went over there and just started recently studying them.
Yeah, not so recent anymore.
Not so recent.
Yes, it's a little bit outdated. I get the idea, behind you want to get those animals to protect them, but you probably don't want to be just taking those animals out of their environment either, so...
Yeah, it's the capture word, I think, is the problem, but...
Yeah. If you want to look into, obviously, the World Wildlife Fund, they're still around, but presumably things have changed. Okay, game. It sounds more complicated than it probably is once you get going, because there's kind of a lot to take in and all that.
Yeah. And it originally came out in 64.
Yeah, so this is a reprint or a later printing of it. So, yeah.
That was a lot to explain.
It was a lot to explain. I hope you followed along. I'm sorry if it was a bit confusing. It took us a while to settle into it when we first played as well. If you enjoyed watching this video, give us a thumbs up. Let us know in the comment section down below, what's your favourite animal? Maybe a wild one, a domestic one?
Anything fluffy or with feathers or that moves.
Okay. All of them. Hit that subscribe button and check back soon. We have videos every single Tuesday.
Sounds good.
Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.